Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has hired a top anti-vaccine lunatic who happens to be pro-Trump as his communications director. Remember when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. told us vaccines aren't really a big part of his campaign? He only talks about vaccines because people want to talk to him about it during interviews, but it's not a big issue for him. Well, he is chosen now as his communications director, Del Bigtree, a pro-Trump anti-vaccine lunatic. What's that thing they say about the company you keep or something like that? NBC News reports Del Bigtree, who leads the country's second best funded anti-vax organization, announced his new role with a letter rife with misinformation. Even the letter announcing he was going to be working for RFK Jr. was riddled with misinformation. I encourage you to check out the article. It says Bigtree is the executive director of the Informed Consent Action Network, the country's second best funded anti-vaccine org, after Robert F. Kennedy's own organization, the Children's Health Defense, from which Kennedy stepped down in April so he could run for president. As you know, the article points out the pandemic was a boon for both organizations. Bigtree also hosts The High Wire, an anti-vaccine and conspiracism internet show. Think about whatever your view is about RFK Jr.'s candidacy, and now look at the letter that Bigtree published, okay? Announcing his new role, Bigtree released a letter rife with misinformation, alleging COVID vaccines were responsible for widespread injury and death. Bigtree called for supporters to, quote, stop the globalists' New World Order and unite under the banner of medical freedom. He also solicited $1,000 donations. No opportunity where a grift isn't possible. Soliciting $1,000 donations from supporters to join a health think tank, funds that would go towards creating television ads. This guy's a big Trump fan. Okay, here are some samples of Del Bigtree. This is now officially the communications director for Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s presidential campaign. But this is from January 6th.
It's rare that I get to follow and act like Donald Trump, and you can't beat that.
Can't beat it.
I tried to think about as I was flying here, what is it that I represent and why am I going to Washington, D.C.?
Great question.
For what is a giant, it appears, Trump rally.
Right. No, we were all wondering, why is RFK Jr. hiring a guy who spoke at a big Trump rally that led to one of the biggest threats on our democracy in the history of the country? Here's another clip of Del Bigtree talking about how what he tried to do during COVID, he tried to get COVID as quickly as possible, and he tried to give COVID to as many people as possible. This is who RFK Jr. has hired. The company you keep, my friends.
So when Joe Biden says, all of you not vaccinated, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? I'm waiting for some damn science to take place up there in the White House. I'm desperately trying to get infected with COVID-19, if I was going to be totally honest. I've hugged about half of you today, and I hope somebody has it so I can get this thing out of the way. And here is why. Yeah, the paper's going to go crazy. Del Bigtree said go out and catch this cold, so let me be perfectly clear. For all of you that are healthy, not suffering from diabetes and obesity and cancer and other comorbidities that are under the age of about 75, let me be perfectly clear. You need to go out and catch this cold.
That's who RFK Jr. has hired. Now, let me give you the good news. You might be wondering, David, I'm not hearing nearly as much about Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s candidacy. When he was running against Biden in the Democratic primary, I would turn on Fox News and it seemed like just about every day, certainly every week, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was on there. That's right, because he was useful to Fox as someone who would hurt Joe Biden. Now that RFK Jr. is running as an independent, and there's the real possibility that he hurts Trump as much as, if not more than Joe Biden, the right-wing media don't want to hear from him. So the good news is that his campaign does appear to be fading. Kennedy, who at one point was polling 14, 15, 16, even 17 in some polls about 6 to 8 weeks ago, he is now polling as low as 4% in some polls, admittedly as high as 8 in a couple. But his campaign, I believe that people are understanding what's at stake here and that we can't mess around with this Bobby Kennedy Jr. stuff. And by the way, if you thought that he was a good representative of an alternative left to what Joe Biden presents, the fact that he hired a Trump-loving anti-vax lunatic hopefully will dissuade the few remaining left-wing voters that are considering voting for this overt grift. So that's the latest on the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. campaign. After the break, this is explosive now. I hope you're sitting, if you're driving, pull over, because this may be so emotionally rattling that it may cause you to get into an accident. After the break, we finally have the evidence of the 2020 presidential election being stolen. Trump posted the evidence yesterday. It's the proof. We will review it after this short break.